You casually walk down the stairs, tap into TfL, get on the tube, and go home from Oxford Circus to West Hampstead. Simple, right? Well, actually not so simple. You've just signed up to 43 pages of legal jargon. 49 pages actually, if you used contactless. And these are not trivial things. The terms and conditions of TfL specify what they can do with your data. For example, CCTV footage or the trip history, how to get a refund. And even if you want to read the rules, you're going to have to sign up to a further dozens of pages of TfL's website terms and conditions. You go to Uniqlo and buy a t-shirt. Again, you've signed up to dozens of pages of terms and conditions. You wake up in the morning and you go to work. Now you're subject to several books worth of legislation, the UK tax law. And if you get any of them wrong, you could end up going to jail. And the problem goes even deeper, because even if you were to sit down and try to read all of these rules, you wouldn't be able to understand them very well because they're complicated and written in jargon. Employment income is not charged to tax under this part if it is within the charge to tax under Case 1 of Schedule D by virtue of Section 314(1) of ICTA, Divers and Diving Supervisors. The law is a vital part of our everyday life. So who thought it was a good idea to make it so complicated, so difficult, so hard to understand, to use, and to follow? And what can we do to make it easier? Let's take a step back and rewind the clock. Some of the first laws that we actually know from, laws that were written down, or in this case carved in stone, come from ancient Mesopotamia over 4,000 years ago. These rules were very simple. They simply defined what would happen if people did a certain thing according to the local custom of the time. If a man commits a robbery, then he will be killed. These ancient laws were really prototypes of the types of laws that we have today. They did try and define a certain number of ifs and then a certain number of thens. So if a certain person does a certain thing, then a particular consequence attaches to that action. The first time that we actually get consistent and systematic laws is with the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was a very large empire across most of what is now Europe and Northern Africa. The legal system underlying the Roman Empire was very sophisticated, and for the first time, laws were actually clearly written and enforced relatively consistently in a systematic way across the empire. This is really one of the hallmarks of the modern legal systems that we see today. The Roman legal system has continued to influence modern legal systems up to this very day and still gives us the basis for many ways about how we think about law. There is one big problem though, and that is this. If you try to define lots of ifs and lots of thens, you end up with a huge amount of rules. So many rules, in fact, that no individual person can actually read and understand all of them. And the problem goes even further than that, because no matter how many ifs and thens you try and predict, you will never be able to accommodate the huge variety of factual circumstances that exist in the world. So it is very difficult to write a comprehensive set of laws. And that's why we have judges who interpret the law and lawyers who argue the case on both sides. Because sometimes it isn't totally clear what the law is. So we need really smart people to help us understand and find out what was meant. So why don't we just make it super simple? Let's get rid of all the complicated rules and only have a few easy to understand rules that everybody can follow. People have actually tried to do that before. Around 1,500 years ago, as the Roman Empire was collapsing, the Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian II came up with the idea to bring all of the laws of the time into a single book that everyone could have access to. He tasked a number of very smart jurists of the time, including a man named Tribonian, to compile this single book which would have all of the laws in it. This book was called the Corpus Juris Civilis. It continues to influence modern legal systems and has had a huge success over the course of the last millennia. And of course, around 200 years ago, Napoleon tried to do something very similar by compiling a single set of rules that would make it easier for everybody to understand and follow the law. This was particularly necessary in revolutionary France because the medieval laws and the laws of the kings of France had become complicated, had become confusing and even contradictory. That's why Napoleon asked for the commission of the Code Civil, the French civil code. It continues to be in force in France today, although heavily amended. Again, this systematization and bringing together of different laws and the removing of legal jargon was a huge success and made sure that many more people had access to their rights. Now, again, we are facing a world where the law has become impenetrably complex and far too difficult for individuals, but also for small businesses and even for large businesses to truly understand their legal rights and obligations. But in the absence of political reform, what can we do in order to simplify things, in order to make sure that people have access to the knowledge that they need to live a fulfilling and a just life in a democratic society? This is where I want to talk to you about CourtCorrect. What we do at CourtCorrect is to help you understand and enforce your rights. We have a search engine that contains easy to understand legal information on all the different important areas of life, whether it's about the TFL terms and conditions, your rights when shopping online, or even your rights with an employer. We have this content and so much more on our search engine to make sure that you can understand and access your rights. But at CourtCorrect, we help you go so much further than that. Not only do we help you understand your rights, but we actually help you do something about it. We can represent you, we can reach out to another party, we can take action on your behalf, and we can make sure that you get the financial compensation or other outcome that you deserve. Together, we want to make the world fairer, and we want to make sure that people are able to access the legal system just like they're able to access other important parts of the world, like the financial system or the education system. And that's it for this week's video. We hope that you find it very interesting to hear a little bit more about the history of the law and also how we see our work within that. We'd love to hear your feedback and hope that you stay tuned for the next video. Bye-bye.